Okay, we're getting back on our Cushman 4-jaw chuck cleanup, and we just finished cleaning up all of the 4 jaws here. Got them looking pretty good. I did find some more trash down in those threads there after I cleaned them up, so we do have to go back in there with our picks and wire brushes and scrape those threads out a little bit more. They get it gets packed in there over the years, and when you're washing it, it's kind of hard to see it. So do need to go back over these again. That one's got some trash in it still. I don't know if you can see it or not, but jaws are turning out really nice. So this is what I'm expecting to do right here on the chuck. You can see it's got a little brighter finish there. Just want to clean it. We got to get the rust inhibitor off of it, and then we'll just take our Scotch-Brite and just clean it, buff it really good, and kind of get it down to the bare metal, brighten it up a little bit. Now we also will be, let's see if I can spin this around here. I want to make sure that our taper in here is good and clean, so we'll spend a good amount of time making sure this is polished well and making sure that if there's any dings in there, I can actually feel some spots that need to be stoned. So we need to stone that taper, make sure that there's no burrs in there on that, and we'll polish these threads up as well, kind of brighten them up a little bit, just make them look a little bit better. All right, so let's go ahead and get started on this guy. I'm ready to see the thing done, but we got a lot of polishing work ahead of us to get this finished up. We'll give it a spray and wipe down with the heavy duty degreaser here to remove the SP350. These are junk. These are the old cheapo blue towels you can get at the auto parts store. My wipe alls are a lot stronger rag. They don't tear as easy. We still have a little bit of oil residue up in those screws there. I'm probably gonna try to give them a wipe. We'll use our tool here and some more of the sprayed. I've got our pig mat underneath here. Just kind of rinse this off a little bit better. I don't know if this will work, but we're gonna give it a try though. That'll work, and we'll just take our air and just kind of blow that out a little bit. I thought I'd give you guys an update on our forklift situation. So yesterday was when we first showed this to you, and we went to use it for our very first time to lift the chuck out of the truck, and it would not crank. Well, I wanted to follow up with this and say that Thompson Cat has already been out here today. They responded to me immediately today, sent a technician out here to check it. And as my suspicion was, let me see if I can get this open right here. I thought it was a bad battery, and that's what it was. He came out and tested the battery. It was showing bad. He tested the alternator. It was charging just like it should be, so it was just a bad battery. So they replaced it with a brand new battery for me. So very good of them to come out. He did it. He checked everything out. Everything else on the forklift seems to be just fine. There shouldn't be any other issues that we know of, but they're just a phone call away if we find any other kind of issues. I think I have a 30-day warranty on it if anything breaks or messes up. But very cool of a Cat. I'm sorry, Thompson lift truck here in Pensacola. That's who I'm buying this from. So they seem to have some pretty good response on the service there. So just wanted to give you guys an update on the forklift situation. Very happy to have it, and it's going to be a very useful tool around the shop. I moved the big welding table over here underneath the jib crane so that I could use it to move this thing around, make it a lot easier to handle there. So we're going to go ahead and continue on with our cleaning. We're going to use some Scotch-Brite and some lubricant here. I'm going to be using this Power Lube here from CRC to give it. We'll give it a little coat down with this, the Power Lube. And then our Scotch-Brite here, and we're going to start our buffing. Make this thing shine, look good. Get it presentable. You can see a little bit of buffing right there. It's going to help remove some of the black marks that's still on there too. It doesn't take much there. Makes it shine nice. All right, it's looking pretty good. We've got this side here cleaned up nicely. Got down in these T-slots as well. Got those kind of buffed out. And you can see the difference between the right and the left side. Looking good. So we'll carry on and get this side finished out too. So we got the face of it pretty well clean. There's still a little bit down in these the grooves, the graduated lines there. So we're just going to use a wire brush to get down in there and kind of scrape out those grooves. The other benefit, it'll kind of polish up the surface a little bit too with the wire wheel, I mean the wire brush. See, there was still some trash right there. And being careful not to scuff the tag there. I don't want any extra marks on it than we don't already have. So I have not been hitting that with the Scotch-Brite or the wire brush there. All right, the face is just about ready now. We'll have to give it another clean. All right, so we got our face pretty well done. I'll probably touch it up once we get everything finished and kind of do a final brightening on it. But it looks good, right? I'm gonna go ahead and lay it down on its face now and do the back side. I think I'm gonna use some pig mat here. So we'll give the back of the chuck the same kind of treatment. We're gonna take our Scotch-Brite and just kind of give it a nice buffing to kind of remove the darkness from the metal. I also want to clean out these holes a little bit. I'm going to use the air grinder and a wire brush to kind of just lightly clean those out. Now, when I posted some photos of this over on Instagram, I had quite a few people ask, why are the holes in the back of this chuck here? What are they for? I'm going to give you my honest opinion because I've never actually asked anybody from Cushman Chuck Company why they put holes in there. But I firmly believe that the reason these holes are in the chuck is to remove weight. They machine this from a solid piece of steel. So putting these holes there, they're 2-inch in diameter and they're just drilled holes. It's to remove some of the weight from the chuck so it's not so heavy. The other added benefit to having the holes in the chuck, and a lot of people don't realize this, is whenever you're indicating it, you're usually grabbing it with your left hand. That gives you a place to grab this chuck whenever you're spinning it. So, like I said, some people don't think about that, but that's another added benefit to it there. It just gives you a finger hole. So, it's there to lighten the chuck. Now, if there's any other reasons beyond that, I don't know. We'll take this wire brush and go ahead and clean these holes out. That brush right there is working great. We'll just keep working our way all the way around the chuck doing that there. Okay, we're moving on to the bore here. I'm going to go in with this fine wire wheel and just try to clean that out some. I believe I'm going to go back in with this guy right there. This is like a paint remover, but it's made for polishing material as well. And we'll use this, I think, we'll use this to lightly just kind of give this tapered bore a nice polish. And I'm going to bring, I don't have any round stones with me here. I've got some at the other shop. I'm going to bring a round stone down here to be able to lay a round stone in there and make sure that there's no high spots from the dings that are on this thing. I'm actually surprised how many imperfections are in this bore here over the years of people removing it, putting it back on, and not cleaning this thing real well whenever they do it. just so you're aware, I'm not putting a lot of pressure on this. I'm not trying to cut the metal. I'm just trying to clean it in the hopes of any high spots it might be knocking those down. I mean, just laying it down on there just like that and just letting the weight of the grinder do the polishing there. That's doing pretty good. So we'll just keep rotating it around a little at a time. So we've got that bore pretty well polished out. This little wheel did pretty good. So I'm kind of at a stopping point on that. I'm gonna bring the round stone tomorrow and we'll lay that in there and kind of give that one last buff with the stone there, make sure all the high spots are gone out of it. So really the only thing we got left to clean up on the chuck is the outer diameter right there. So we'll give that a clean up, but just about through with this guy on the cleanup anyway. All right, guys, I got a couple more things here that we could use to help polish this tapered bore there. So we've got this guy. It's a flap disc that has Scotch-Brite mixed into the sanding fingers there, and then we also have a straight up Scotch-Brite wheel there too. Both of them you can use in the grinder there. And then this is the round stone that I was talking about. So we can come in here with our round stone like this and just gently stone that if we have any high spots. And I have this guy too. Now this is a diamond hone right here, but it's a radiused diamond hone. So you can do the same thing. You can lay this in here like that and use it to basically just hone it. We're just trying to remove the high spots, but this did a really good job of brightening up the metal without trying to, you know, cut it and take a bunch of material off. But I think we'll go in here with this one next and try to do one more polish maybe with this guy and see how that does. And of course we could use that one too. So both of these are superior brand abrasives that I've had. I have a bunch of different stuff like this in the cabinet to use whenever we need. So let's get back in here and give it some more polishing. Same technique. I'm not pushing down on it. I'm just letting the weight of the grinder where it touches do the polishing act. It looks like that's working pretty good. This is the one it's the flap disc with the Scotch-Brite built into it. I've got the bore polished to what I think looks satisfactory. I don't feel any, you can feel the bumps in there from all the gouges that it's had, but it doesn't feel like there's any high spots sticking out. So I'm gonna go ahead and go with our round stone. And I just want to kind of lay it flat along both of these flat planes. And I'm going to do this here just to try to make sure that we knock off any high spots that's still remaining. It's catching right in here, so it feels like there's a, this is the worst section just right in there, so I can kind of feel it a little bit. So this is definitely helping. I think that's working nicely, just like that. So we've used the stone. I'm going to go back in there with this diamond hone right here, because this is going to give you a more fine feel to it, where this is a little more coarse feeling. But this is the only round stone that I got. And we're going to do the same thing. This is kind of like the final polish is what it'll be doing. And I can feel those spots in there a little bit more, even though everything should be kind of polished down smooth now into an even plane. But like I said, we'll just use this for one final polish in here. just like that. You can see a little bit of material in there. So we've got everything cleaned up on the chuck now except for the outside diameter here, and this is the roughest surface on the whole chuck. You've got a lot of dents and dings all over this from it being used for the past 80 years or so, and the areas around the spindles here, you're going to have a lot of these marks, and that's typical for any four-jaw chuck. When you have your chuck wrench and you're indicating, you go and you're sticking that thing in there, it hits this a lot. We're not too concerned about that. We want to take down the high spots, so like that guy right there. So what we'll do, we'll use this big mill smooth file. We'll use the draw file method across it like this, and we'll just draw file it. And what that's going to do is knock down the high spots, such as that guy right there. There's a lot of them all around the chuck, and that'll help smooth this down without having to get the grinder over here grinding into it and you know, bringing those high spots down lower than they should be. We just want to bring them down to an even plane, and then once we do that, we'll take our Scotch-Brite and just kind of brighten it up like that right there, make it look all nice and even. That's a real nice method to do this. You can see it cutting all the way across there in one flat plane. As I'm doing this, I can tell where the high spots are. Like on this one, it's right in here, it got hit. So you get a little more resistance as it's trying to slide across that side. And then once you get them knocked down, it starts smoothing out. I can feel some right in there. That's working good. If you start off light like this right here, give it a few hits, you can see all the high spots that you're trying to file down. Pretty big dent right on that quarter of that T-slot. I'm getting a nice, pretty even cut now all the way across. There's a little dark line here and a dark line here where it's not quite touching, but it is, and it's looking good. All right, we're getting towards the last section of the chuck here to draw file. I'm real happy with the results. This has ended up being a perfect way to try to help true up the OD of this chuck without sticking a grinder on it. I love how it just knocks those high spots, those dings, right on down without taking too much material. So yeah, we're getting pretty close to having this this cleaned up and ready to go. I'm going to finish draw filing. I'll probably go around it one more time just to be sure that I got everything, make it look uniform, and then we'll Scotch-Brite it and move on from there. Getting pretty close though. Loving the way this thing is turning out. We've got our draw filing done. I'm happy with that. Just gonna, the last step here, I'm gonna go over with this gray Scotch-Brite and just kind of give it one last polish, and it helps kind of blend in those file marks too. And it should make everything look a little bit more uniform. Got the outside of it done. I'm going over the face of it one more time with the gray Scotch-Brite, just doing it dry without any lubricant. Give it one last final little polish on there. It really kind of makes it shine even more. If you guys are wondering why I don't have my gloves on, because I typically do, sometimes I just forget to put them on when I start, and by the time my hands are dirty, I just say, screw it, just keep on going and clean them off. Now that's looking good right there. Just doing about a quarter of it at a time. You get in there with the where the light reflects, you can really see it polishing as you're buffing on it. All right, so we've got everything cleaned up. We're ready to put the jaws in there. So if you notice on the face of the chuck, it's numbered. So you have 1, 2, 3, and 4 over here, and all of your jaws will be stamped. You see 1, 2, there's 3, and then there's 4. So we'll make sure that we put the jaw in the corresponding slot there where it goes. And one of the things that I made sure of is that we've got the threads completely cleaned out on all the jaws there. We still had a little bit of crud stuck in there that I had missed. So we got those cleaned out, and then I've checked it. There's another reason why I made this handy little tool. I've run all 4 of them in and out just like this, and they're all working beautifully. Not hanging up, there's no chips in there, nothing to get stuck. So we're ready to put them in there. I'm going to take a little bit of whey oil right here in this area where I'm not exactly sure what this component is called, but it's what captures the spindle or the screw. So it's like a bearing. I'm just going to take a little bit of whey oil, just a few drops, and put down in there to kind of help lubricate that area. I'm not going to do this on the whole screw. Just get a little bit of whey oil right there on that. I'm going to take our power lube here, this stuff. I'm going to take and put a little bit of it on the spindle itself. That'll be our lubricant. Now I'm going to come back later because I don't have any with me right now, but what I like to do is an old trick that I was taught years ago by Sonny. He used to work with us, was mix a little bit of graphite, very fine graphite powder with some whey oil, and brush it on there, and it seems to work really good. So that's what I'm probably going to do later. But for now, we'll just use our power lube for a little bit of lubricant. And that is looking good. Two and two. Last one, 4 and 4. All right, we are just about ready to mount this guy over on the lathe. All right, well, it's time to bring that big 4-jaw chuck over here to the pacemaker and get it mounted on here. So in order to do that, we need to remove this big 3-jaw chuck from the lathe. So here's an A-bomb fun fact for you. I have never removed an L-series chuck before off of a lathe. This is the same mount that was on the that's on the pacemaker at Motion, but I never had a reason to remove that 4-jaw chuck, which is identical to our 4-jaw there. We never even had a 3-jaw for that lathe. So I've never run another machine where I had this style of mount, spindle mount, that I had to remove. So this will be the first time. I do have a chuck wrench here that I can use to, this is what this chuck wrench is going to be for, or spindle wrench. And I bought this from a gentleman on Practical Machinist. That's where he posts, I believe. But Aaron Jenkins, who I know from Instagram, he's the one that turned me on to the guy that makes these and sells them. Unfortunately, I don't remember who that is over on Practical Machinist. So I wish I could give you that info, but I don't remember. But I emailed him and asked him if he could make this wrench for me. He makes them for all the different size, the L size spindles there. So nice cut job that he does on it. Deburrs it nicely, and it's ready to go. And it fits mine just like it should. Let's see if I can get it to hook. There we go. I don't have it in gear, but so hopefully we'll be able to use this and get it loosened and get this chuck off of here. All right, the reason why I've got my big pry bar over here with me is because that size rectangular tubing is the perfect size to use as a cheater pipe or an extension for the spindle wrench here if I can't get it to break loose. Let's try it without this pry bar and see if I can just get it to break loose. And this should be the right direction because I've kind of double checked myself before I started to make sure that I was going to be going the right way. One A-bomb torque, not doing it. So what we'll do, we'll just go ahead and use my cheater pry bar here. I call it the $1 million pry bar. It's got many uses. Let's see if we can get it with this. There we go. Got it with some leverage. All right. Now let's see if I can figure out how to get it off here safely. So it's already pushing back into this face here. That might be what it has to do in order to kind of eject it off of the taper that's in there. So there's a taper and a key is what lines up the chuck. Let me go ahead, I'll put the jib crane on here to hold it. I don't want it to fall off there. And then we'll keep pulling on the nut here to see if we can get this chuck to come on off. All right, we got our jib crane hooked to it. We may try giving it a bump to see if it'll actually come off that taper without pushing back into this cover plate here. There it goes. A lot of rust in there. Bam, there it is. How gross and crusty all that is, man. Been on there for a while. All right, we'll get this set down. We'll get you in there so you can get a tighter shot. Definitely gonna clean all this up first before we put our 4-jaw on there. A little bit closer shot at the L taper, the L spindle. Not quite neutral, but there we go. And you can see the key. We'll get in there with our degreaser and try to blow all that old oil and crud and rust out of there. All right, we'll use our heavy duty degreaser to spray all these threads out, see if we can clean as much of this crud out of there as we can, and clean the spindle up. I believe we got all the oil off of there. We're going to go in there with our gray Scotch-Brite now. I just want to buff on this spindle nose. Kind of get rid of the discoloration of the corrosion that's been on here. And then check it for any kind of dings or dents. We can rub it with our precision ground flat stones to get rid of any marks that might be on it. Got our Scotch-Brited pretty well. I'm going to use my precision stones here. Make sure it fits. Yep, it just does fit in there. And we're just making sure that there's no burrs that are sticking up in that taper. You can see, you can see the two areas where the taper kind of seats up. That I can feel. I can definitely feel a couple that we're already knocking down. We're just so limited on our space. We actually need one smaller than this, which I think I got one. I think Lance made me a set of the 4-inch. It might be a little thinner. I went and checked my 4-inch stones. They're actually the same thickness as this. They're just 4 inches long. So I'm just going to keep using these since we already got them out. Thought I'd give you a little bit better angle of what I'm doing. You're just trying to remove any high spot from where maybe a tiny chip was on here or on the chuck whenever it was installed in the past. Like I can see that there's a little scratch right there. And if you rub this over it, if there's any high spot, it takes it down. So that one feels pretty good there. So I'll take my time off camera here and make sure that we got all of our little burrs taken care of on the spindle nose. So hopefully everything seats up nicely. Definitely a case where a thinner stone would work pretty good in this. I got this thing ready for the chuck, for the 4-jaw. Just one more last blow of the air there to kind of get any dust off of it. So I'm going to coat it down with our SP350. This will help give it some lubrication, especially for the threads and the taper fit, and rust inhibitor there as well. So luckily they got the key timed so that on the chuck it's timed with the eye bolt that holds it to the top. So we should be able to just stick that right there, the key to the top of the spindle, and it'll all line up there. So get a little extra on the threads, and I think we're ready to go. I'll squirt a little bit of this inside the chuck there as well. So I'm gonna go grab it and fly it over here now. Give a little coating of the inside of the spindle. Inside the spindle mount there on the chuck, I mean. All right, let's get her on there. Actually, I wanted to put a little bit on those threads also. Forgot about that. I believe it's lining up with the key. Yeah. Okay. Nothing to it. That worked out perfect. I do not have it in gear, but that's definitely got it there. So we should be able to let go of our jib crane. Man, that's already looking better, having that proper sized chuck mounted on here. So I think what we'll do is we'll stick it in gear. I'll go ahead and use the cheater pipe again, just to make sure that we get about the same amount of torque on it that it took to get the thing off. But I think we're gonna have success with this guy right here. Let me get this in a position. We'll try that right there. Let me grab my pry bar. Now, I've seen Keith Fender do this quite a bit on his lathe over the years, and what I remember he does, he's got a pretty long handle there. He just kind of bounces on it a couple times with his body weight, and that's all he's ever done to tighten it up. You can see it's still tightening up there. I'm gonna call that good right there. That's a lot of torque with this amount of leverage on there. That is exciting to see. That's looking good. Stuck our dial indicator on here just to see what kind of run out we're getting on the OD of the chuck. And that is just under 0.02 of an inch total indicated run out there on the chuck body itself. So we'll go ahead and put a piece of material in there and get it indicated. Use our new 4-jaw chuck wrench there. I've just got a piece of stock here that's measuring 2 1/4. I always use these grooves here and that top edge of that bevel on the jaw, and that puts you equally all 4 jaws. Feels so good cleaned up. That's about 2, so go a 1/2 a turn and a 1/2 a turn. It should put you right about 2 1/4. Just like that, and that will help keep everybody in check. That tells you, well, I was told you're not supposed to spin up a chuck without a piece of material in there. That's all right. We'll go ahead and get this indicated. That way I can show you this guy running. I have not spun it up yet using the power of the machine. Get it running true first. All right, the chuck feels good as far as working the jaws here. The screws feel nice and smooth. All right, that's within 1/1000 right there. We'll let it run. Let's power this thing up and see this chuck run. We use our intermediate. This is 91 RPM. All right. I'm just looking at it here to see if I can see any face run out. You can't see any with your eye. So I think we've got it on there nice and true. Let's go to fast, high range. This is 630 here, it's 540. I'm getting some of that power lube slinging out of it already. Tell you what, before I spin it up too fast, I'm gonna run it at intermediate and try to get a little bit of that lubricant to sling out of it. It's looking good though, looking just like it's supposed to. That's 279 RPM. It looks good. Still slinging a little bit of that lubricant out of the threads there. That'll be all right. 330. Yeah, man, that's looking good. I'm so glad we got it cleaned up. It just make the machine look so much nicer. Another thing we'll do is let's go ahead and put an indicator. Excuse me. We'll put an indicator on the face of these jaws here and see what kind of axial run out we're getting on the you know, where the jaws are sitting. That one's got a little bit of movement. It's between 0 and 1/1000ths. Same thing with that. That one's 0. That one peaks out at 1/1000ths once you get to the edge right there. So not 100% flat. But from what I'm seeing, we have no more than 1/1000ths variation on the flat there. So that, you know, so if you get something like a flange that you want to bump up against the jaws when these are turned around, we know that we've got a nice true running chuck jaw there that we can depend on. So I'm happy with it. All right, guys. Well, this segment of the restoration is coming to an end here on the you know, the cleanup and the install of the chuck. I'm real happy with the way it turned out. It looks great. I'm glad I put the extra work into it to not only make it look better, but hopefully function a little bit better too, with getting all the you know, the spindles and the threads cleaned out there. So I know you guys are excited to see some more, you know, some chip making over here on the lathe, and that's the next thing I want to do. I've got a couple of scrap gearbox shafts that I've saved for a while, and I need to get them loaded up there at the house and bring them down here. And next phase, I think what we'll do is go ahead and get one of those shafts mounted in here, get it indicated using our cleanup four jaw, and we'll make some heavy test cuts over here on the pacemaker. I know what I've done in the past on the other pacemaker I ran, 1/2 inch per pass at a 25 thousandths feed rate. I can't remember the RPM, but you know, we were turning some pretty good sized shafts, you know, 10, 12 inch in diameter. And it handled it good, handled it very nicely. So what we'll see if we can do is we can get my pacemaker to replicate that same cut and see if we can get that same material removal rate that I used to in the past, 1/2 inch per pass at a 25 thou feed rate. But hopefully you enjoyed watching this little cleanup, and hopefully some of the things that I've shown that I've implemented here is going to help you out with some of your restorations. There's a lot of guys out there that watch these videos that are doing the same thing, acquiring these old machines and trying to breathe new life back into them to save them from the scrapyard. And you know, it's fun for me too to go through here and get this guy cleaned up and get it operational again, get it looking good, and all the little minor things that need some working on, you know, get those taken care of. So we'll bring you back hopefully very soon with a big piece of scrap shafting. We'll get in here and do some heavy turning, all right? We'll see you then.